Like, 'cause sometimes when I'm down, taking the step is the hard thing where it's like, yeah, I know if I read
Mm.
these or if I go for a walk, I know I'm going to feel better, but I want to sit here with my pity party and not go take the walk or not take the first step or open the email.
You do have to know yourself. Like there's moments where you're going to feel like I'm not good enough, or nobody's going to care about this episode. No one's going to care to hear Dave on Andy's show. Like, why, how, you have so many great guests. Like, why would I, who would ever listen to this? Right. And so I have these feelings all the time. And I was actually recording a little mini series on my podcast around your inner critic and dealing with imposter syndrome. And while I was recording it, the words fell out of my mouth. And I
Wow.
was actually had a moment of imposter syndrome and I left it in the recording because
Hmm.
I'm like, I can't believe it. I just did it in front of you. And I
Right.
actually said words that came from somewhere that put myself down in the moment as I'm
Right.
talking about not being down in the moment. It
Yeah.
happened. And so one thing that really stood out to me and one little action thing I would suggest to people, and it came up in this 4-part miniseries I did, was to make a list of things you've done in the past, big, small, whatever it is. You've learned a new task, you learned a new skill, something you didn't know how to do that you can do now. And I equated it to driving standard manual transmission in a car. Okay. That was
Sure.
my first car that I ever drove, first had. It was standard. So I've
Hmm.
only driven standard for the majority of my life. I tell people I don't know how to drive automatic. Like I can only drive manual.
I love that.
Right.
It's too
So
confusing. I
it's
don't know.
true.
It just
Yeah.
goes.
I like having 3 pedals and 2 feet. It's great.
Hmm.
It's like a puzzle. You got to figure it out, especially if you're on a hill and there's somebody right behind you. You got
Right.
to figure all these things out. So there's a bit. I get in my car and I drive home from work, and I don't even think about driving standard. I just drive my car. But
Hmm.
there was a time in my life when the thought of driving a standard transmission car was like impossible. Like, how the heck do you do
Right.
that? That's
Yeah.
impossible. But now it's common knowledge, it's normal. So that's a task that I've learned, that I've mastered, and I don't even think about. It just comes naturally. That goes on my list. I found the love of my life and we've been married 31 years. That's something I've added to my list. I've been a
Hmm.
parent and all 3 of my kids have survived. I put that on my list, right? These are all
Right.
things that I've accomplished. And the
Right.
moment I have any of these feelings, Andy, that say, Dave, you can't do this new thing, or you're not good enough, or you can't, that's a thought. That's a
Mhm.
belief. But I counter any thought or belief with a fact.